Hello, and welcome back to the Five Factors Podcast. Great to have you here on episode 8, or for you, it may be episode 1. We really don't care as long as you're here. We're glad. And so my name is Tal Prince, and I'm here with the inimitable Matt Adair. Matt, how are you?
I'm doing well, and we continue to grow people's vocabulary, including my own. I don't know what inimitable means, and if I had to spell it, if my life depended upon me spelling that word, might be dead. It's possible.
Oh, I'm glad we don't have to count on that. And so,
you and me both. I like living, Tal.
Yeah, well, yeah, as well you should. I as well enjoy living, at least 9 days out of 10. So today we are going to be talking about productivity, which is a big buzzword today. It is something that a lot of people are paying a lot of attention to, and there are I don't know, by my last count, I think there were 3.2 million different productivity systems available.
That sounds about right.
So this is a big topic for my friend Matt here. Matt is a productivity whiz. He's a guy who pays a lot of attention to it and does it through his coaching. That teaches a lot of people how to be far more productive. So Matt, what are your just kind of opening thoughts on productivity as a topic today?
Well, one, a lot of people are interested in it. I just sitting here just ran a quick Google search, and if you type in the word productivity, you're going to get 249 million hits. And so it's a topic that people are interested in for a lot of different reasons. And I think really what we're after today is we want to talk about a few of our favorite strategies, the ones that we find most helpful. But really want to dig into the reason why it matters, because it does. We don't run away from it. And I think that there are certain circles that there's kind of almost a productivity backlash, almost kind of a productivity fatigue. And so we're just trying to find the sweet spot here between making too much out of it and making not enough out of it.
Yeah, and that's kind of one of our major heartbeats here at Five Factors is we're not trying to make you better.
Yeah.
We're just trying to get you healthy.
Yeah.
We're just trying to help you be healthy. So we're not trying to really, here we're going to make you more productive. We're going to give you a healthy perspective on productivity today. And really a big part of that, for a lot of us is why do I want to be productive? Yes, there are a million systems that you can go and engage in, but really, why am I doing this? Why do I want to be productive? Why should productivity matter to me? So that's what we're going to get into. So join us for the ride here. Matt, let's talk about how we spend our time at work, because that's where most of us go in terms of productivity. When we come home, a lot of us are couch potatoes, or just kind of hanging out. We don't really feel necessarily as productive at home, most of us, but we'll talk about that, I'm sure. But let's start with work. What goes on with Americans in terms of productivity at work?
Yeah, there's a study that Microsoft did a while back, and it was for Americans, actually worldwide, with hundreds of thousands of people. And
I apologize for my xenophobic open.
It's true.
Increasing the vocabulary yet again. But so
apologies to Afghanistan and Sri Lanka, everybody who's listening in from there.
We deeply apologize.
Yes. So the study that Microsoft did, and what it found is that on average, people work around 45 hours a week. And out of those 45 hours, 17 of those hours are deemed to be unproductive. And I think we understand why that is, especially in a knowledge-based economy where a lot of us are staring at screens, or we have access to screens, and that's where a lot of our unproductivity comes from. And so I don't think that number just kind of was like, wow, that's so surprising to me. But I think it's a reality for us, is that we go into work and we want to be productive, but in the end, we're not quite as productive. And again, for us, the reason, kind of that this whole issue matters is because we are talking about our vocational health and making sure that, as you said, the aim here is to be healthy. We're not trying to necessarily ace the exam. We just want to be in the pocket and keep the ball in the fairway.
Yeah. And I think that's a real key, for us as we look at this. And productivity is, there are a lot of definitions of it. How would you define productivity for you? What does that mean when we say, so Matt, let's talk about productivity today. What does productivity mean to you?
Yeah, I think that there are two words that I would say. One is, when I think of it, it is maximizing my day. So just kind of making the most out of it, but
Hmm.
for the sake of freedom. And we're going to come back and talk to that because I think that's the real reason underneath it, and a lot to explore there. But I think when I think of productivity, it's making the most out of my workday.
Hmm. Yeah, some guys I look at in terms of productivity, it's a website, it's an entire system of stuff that they have, but the website is Asian Efficiency, so AsianEfficiency.com, and they defined productivity in a way for me that I went, okay, that makes sense, and more than a hey, are you knocking out your to-do list for the day? Because I get lost in that. I don't really care. I'm just, but the way they frame up productivity is, did you make progress today towards your life goals? Did you make
Significance,
progress
right?
towards your goal? Yeah.
Yeah.
So did you make progress towards your goals? That's productivity. So am I productive today? Did I make progress towards my goals? And that gets back to freedom. If that, I mean, for a goal for us of, freedom of lifestyle, just freedom in general, then we're making progress towards that. Are we moving towards knocking our goals down? And that's really a helpful thing. But Asian Efficiency has a lot of productivity strategies, and there are a bunch of, as I mentioned earlier, lots and lots of productivity strategies. But Matt, what are your top three strategies for productivity?
Yeah, and all three of these fit together. And as Tal said, there are a gazillion of them. And so, really, what we're trying to do here is, as you're thinking about being productive, if you go, I'd like to be more productive, then we want to give you kind of a simple way of thinking about this that you can actually take some action on. So, the first one for me is really prioritizing your most significant work. And there's a fairly well-known way of thinking about this called the Eisenhower Matrix, which comes from both General and President Dwight Eisenhower, who was really trying to figure out, how do I make decisions about where to spend my time? And the two things that I find most interesting to me are, for most of us, when we think about work, when we really dial it in, we're dealing with the issues of urgency and importance. And most of us would go, look, the work that I need to spend my time on are the things that are both urgent and important, which makes sense. You're up against a deadline. There are things that have to get done today, and they're important. Like the non-important urgent stuff, that's the stuff that, it's like, can I hand that off to somebody else?
Mm-hmm.
The non-urgent, non-important stuff, that's the stuff that you probably need to avoid. But what I find is that the reason why so many of us struggle to maximize the value out of our day, the reason why we don't make progress towards some of those goals, is because we don't leave room for the non-urgent, important work that we have to do. And so almost every single job or every single thing that you do that constitutes work has these things that really do make a difference, but they're not urgent. There's no deadline that's pressing on you. And what happens is all the urgent stuff presses you out of the ability to be able to spend any time on that. So you keep talking about making progress towards those things, but you never do. And so to me, what we're trying to go for here is that if you have two tasks, one is urgent and important, and the other is important but non-urgent, here's what you want to do. You want to look first at that non-urgent, important piece of work, okay, that we would say is significant, and you need to get that on your calendar. It might not be today, it might not be tomorrow, it might be next week or next month, but you just putting time on the calendar to do that, you're prioritizing that first. You're going, I can't let this fall through the cracks. And so when you do that, then you can turn around and then fill in the blanks with all the other urgent, important things that you have to do, but you're not allowing the things that make the biggest difference, that allow you to genuinely make progress towards those goals, to get forgotten because you just ran out of time.
Man, yeah, that's helpful. The tyranny of the urgent is ever present.
Yes.
And it's so easy to have that knock you off course because the phone's always going to ring. There's always going to be a fire. There's always going to be somebody that needs you for something that to them is urgent. And it may not be urgent to you. And do you have what it takes? Do you have that boundary, that internal boundary to go, that's not an emergency for me right now.
Right.
You know, and I've got to stay on course. It's really easy to get knocked off course by somebody else's urgent, you know, or your own urgent, you know, or just running a business, you know, running a ministry, running a business, whatever it is you lead. Where there are people, there's going to be different agendas and different priorities, and they all seem urgent. Can you maintain yours and move forward? And that Eisenhower Matrix is a great tool to use to kind of help you stay on track. And I think what you said of keeping it on your calendar, just placing it on there. You've prioritized it. It's coming up. It's going to be in your face. You're going to have to look at it. And if you can schedule that and block it off, and say, no, for the next 2 hours, I'm working on this.
Yeah.
That's hard to do, but really important to do. And
Yeah.
you may have, go ahead.
And the reason it's hard is not because it's complicated. Yeah, it's hard because we're up against what I would call operational and internal realities. The operational realities are everything going on around me that needs to get done, or the way that things work with my team, in the office, in the organization. And then the internal realities are, why do I feel like I have to drop everything to deal with somebody else's emergency right now? And that's and both of those are real, and both of those are challenges. But what we're saying here is not complicated. It's the things that you can't get to today, but are super important. You got to get it on the calendar. You got to schedule it out. You got to find time. You got to make room for it.
And you may be like me and just like ridiculously ADHD, and you know, there's just something shiny.
Right.
There's just something that happens. And one of the areas where I struggle is just too many alerts. You know, I mean, my phone will buzz, beep, my computer beeps, my iPad, everything around me is going to vibrate, beep. There's a bunch of different tones that I have that mean different things. And hitting that do not disturb button is hard but critical.
Right.
You know, just to have the discipline, but I'm still going to find something shiny.
That's what we do. And I think we're just so hardwired for that now. I mean, you know, just even we love those little dopamine hits that give us an opportunity, hey, buy more information, which is my personal distraction. Like I thrive when I'm learning things. And if there's a digital dopamine hit that I'm going to get, you know, this little buzz is going to come and go, ooh, new things are happening. Then I'm going to be distracted as well. You know,
exactly right.
Yeah. The cute little bunny rabbit's going to come across my mental screen, and I'm going to chase that sucker every time.
Yeah, I'm, you know, like, hey, free bulldozer driving lessons. Holy crap, I need to, you know. Never going to need to drive a bulldozer, but I sure would like to learn how.
That's right.
Especially when there's something in front of me that I don't really want to do. So this is a great segue into why do we struggle to turn our plans into action? What is, from your perspective, what are the major reasons we just have a hard time getting, once we got something on our calendar, what makes it hard to put that into action?
Well, I think that there's two things. You know, first off, I think one of the reasons we struggle to turn a plan into action is that some of us think that if we have a plan, the work is done. That it's like, hey, world, I thought about it, so I should get credit for the thing actually being in existence. So I think we have that. I think we have the challenge of we don't take that simple step of getting into the calendar, so we forget it. But then what I deal with in my own life and what I see in a lot of my clients is that when we get to that moment where it's on the calendar and we're supposed to do that thing, then we run away from it. And sometimes it is the distraction of other things, or it's hard work or things like that. So I think that we struggle with everything from courage and bravery, because it's going to be a hard conversation, or it's going to be a particularly difficult task, or we haven't done a really good job of taking care of ourselves physically. So we find ourselves running up to that as like, man, I got no gas in the tank to work on this particular project. So I think that the reason why we just lose ourselves in that struggle is because taking action is hard. I mean, that's in the end, I mean, it is one thing to talk about it. It is one thing to paint pretty pictures and talk a great game, but having to show up and do the work is more difficult and challenging.
Yeah. It is having to show up and do it. And there's just, there's so many things that can go on. But I like how you were tying in some of the other factors there in terms of physical health. And I would say, yeah, and two, in presence, are you mindful? Are you in a place where you can do it? Are you emotionally healthy? Are you sitting at your desk because you're really hacked off with somebody else and you got some resentment going on, or you had a fight with your spouse or partner on the way into work, whatever, somebody cut you off in traffic and you're upset, or you saw a bad accident. I mean, are you present? Are you focused? Do you have that presence of mind that's needed? And how are your relationships? All of those things matter. All of that ties directly into this, because if you're off, what I know is if you're off in any one of the other factors, productivity will suffer.
Yeah.
It just will. It has to. By definition, it has to.
Yeah.
So yeah, I think that is why the factor framework is helpful in terms of helping us put plans into action. Or you may be, from a personality standpoint, you may be like both Matt and I, you may be intuitives. And so you just kind of sit and think, man, if I imagine it long enough, it's as good as if it actually happened.
Exactly right.
And I wish it went that way, because man, the world would be a much better place.
It'd be a lot easier, right?
Holy crap. Yeah, it would. If everybody would just do it the way we say, it would be a much, much better place, at least for you and me.
Amen.
So what do we do? What do we do with the rest of our work? Because that's the office stuff and putting our most significant work first. But what do we do with the rest of our work?
Well, maybe this is, let me jump back in and hit kind of our second strategy, because I think it'll help kind of lead into this question that you just asked. So here's the second strategy. The first strategy that I think will help you be productive is to prioritize your most significant work, which is, hey, I need to make room for that. I think the second strategy is to put that work first. So the second strategy is to put your most significant work first. And I mean this from two directions. One, there's some research done by a woman named Jennifer Ackerman, and she was paying attention to our circadian rhythms and kind of how we operate when we sleep, when we wake up, and things like
vocabulary.
that. There you go.
Circadian rhythms,
and so basically it's just that kind of rhythm of sleep and rest and all that kind of thing, and then waking up and then going and doing work. And what she found in her research is that we are at our most productive 2.5 to 4 hours after we wake up. And so there's a sense in which we want to do our most significant work pretty soon after we get up. I mean, so for a lot of us, it's going to be kind of the first things we tackle in the day. So that might be a big project you're working on. If you are a pastor, that might be your sermon preparation and doing that in the morning. I know for me, I try to block off my mornings to where I'm not doing a lot of meetings, that I'm looking at the things that I need to do, the things that are going to be the most significant for my business, for our church, and then really focus on investing my time there when I'm at my sharpest and making that happen. So that's the first thing. When I say put your most significant work first, it's like literally on the schedule for you. And then Anders Ericsson also did some additional research, and what he found is, and this is the 10,000 hour rule guy, who says, hey, if you see the best performers, they are people who tend to practice and invest 10,000 hours in that craft. And so I think the principle behind that is the sense of deliberate focus. So when I say put it first, like really believe that your most significant work is the priority for you. Like in the job that you have, in the work that you're doing, if it's truly significant, then it's going to be the thing that you are going to do that's going to make the most difference in your organization for the people around you. And so you making it a priority in your own heart and then in your day, you are actually giving credence to the fact that you're like, no, this is significant. This does make a difference. We are going to get the best return on our investment as an organization by spending time here. And I find that it also tends to be the kind of work that we enjoy if we're in the right work. And so some people feel really selfish about that. And what I'm basically saying is you're giving yourself permission to make a difference by doing stuff that you like. So this is one of the things that I have found strategically to be very, very, very helpful.
Yeah, and it took me way too long, just by way of personal confession. It took me way too long in life to figure out, you know what, I really do three things. That's what I do. I speak, I write, I counsel. That's it. If it's outside of that, I really don't need to be around it.
I love the clarity. I mean, I have ever since you first told me that. I was like, yes, it's just amazing. Yes, perfect.
Well, and it's helpful for me because I mean, there's a lot of, I don't know if you're like me listening or not, but I really struggled for a very long time in a very major way in my life with good, better, best. And I still do. I don't have that covered, but nailing down what I do best. What's my zone? Where am I most helpful? Where am I most productive? Where am I most helpful? Where am I most energized? And where am I using the gifts and talents that God has given me? It's speaking, writing, and counseling. You know me, Matt. If you give me the logistics and details, I will screw up a 2-car parade. It is not going to go well. I hate that that's true, but that is not going to end well. Yeah. It's just reality. And so I did have a hard time making that just kind of internal shift of, cause the way you mentioned it, does that, man, holy crap, that feels kind of selfish to say, no, I only do these things. Yeah. Or it feels like, belittling to those things. And it's not that at all. I have great respect for and great need for systems people like you, Matt Adair, and people that are, no, I can build that system. Yeah. I'll develop great ideas. I don't make them happen.
This is the beauty of working together as a team, and it's the downside of somebody who perceives themselves to be well-rounded. And there are some people who are willing to do different kinds of work, but I just really think that in general, being well-rounded is a myth. And I have some people that I know that I'm very close to, really good friends of mine, who would say, I'm really, really well-rounded. And I said, well, you're at least willing to do different kinds of work. But I just have yet to meet the person who, if there are 4 kinds of work, then they basically are equally proficient, 25%, 25%, 25%, 25%. Yeah, so what I would want them to do is to be able to find places where they do bring the most value to the people around them and invest more of their time there. And so, again, just taking that thing that's significant work and really makes a difference in going ahead and making sure that I prioritize that.
Yeah, I do a lot of Myers-Briggs work, as you know. And so Myers-Briggs type indicator, those middle things, the functions. I mean, but when I'm just doing the basic MBTI stuff, people will tell me all the time, I think I'm both. No, you're really not. Yes, you do both. It's like you being right and left-handed. There's just that thing, though. Know you're right or left-handed. Yeah. Can you write with your opposite hand? Yeah. Takes more energy, focus. It's draining. You're not as good at it. You're just not working the way you're meant to work. But when people think they're well-rounded, what I find is they just have a lack of clarity and a lack of self-understanding and insight. Just kind of honest, to be the ability to be really honest with themselves as to what they suck at, because you do.
Yeah. Well, and I'll have people that'll be like, they'll want to kind of fight me on this and be like, but I am well-rounded. I'm like, that's cool if you feel like you are. But I'm just telling you you're not. And we don't have to fight about it. And that I would tell them the same thing. It's the continuing journey of finding and then giving yourself permission to really leverage some of those weaknesses, but invest in your strengths and the things that you do best.
The classic business world diatribe about salespeople is the best salesperson born or made. Yeah. Now, I know sales trainers want to say, oh, they're made, but that's because they have a gig to support. Right. You will never beat a born salesperson if you're the made salesperson. You're just not. You just won't. So is it selfish to go a different direction? No, it's the right thing to do. Yeah. So put that most significant worst first. So our significant work, that runs to the top of the list. That's on our calendar. What do we do with all the other stuff now? Because so we've taken that most productive time of the day and we've put our most significant work in that block. Now what do we do?
Well, now that you've kind of taken the pressure off of, hey, totally botching my day and missing out on making a difference. Now that you've invested an hour, 2 hours, half a day, maybe a full day sometimes on your most significant work, and now you fill in your calendar with everything else. And I tend to find that that's usually based on deadlines and urgency and what are the things things that, I need to meet this person today for coffee or lunch or whatever. We have this, team meeting that's happening over here. And so, but what you're doing is you're not crowding out significance by filling in the blanks of your calendar with everything that's urgent first. So that's what you do with the rest of your work. You create space for your significant work, and that will not fill up all, 40 to 45 hours of your week. It's going to be a handful of hours, and then you can fill in everything else with that stuff that you're like, hey, I just got to get done with this. And you do. You're responsible for doing certain tasks in your work that aren't significant. How do you get those done? You do those things after you have calendared and scheduled your most significant work.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and that's, depending upon, type of field you're in, that may look a little bit different. Right. For a guy like me as a therapist, I'm seeing clients. My day is pretty well set for me. Yeah. I'm going to come in and there's going to be a client. And then I'm going to have a 10, 15-minute break in between, and then I'm going to have another client. But then there are days where I don't, and so it's what do I do then with that block of time? When I'm really healthy, I'm looking to what can I do to be productive in that time? How can I make progress towards any of my life goals here? What do I have to do that I can put in that time? And that's important. When I'm not feeling healthy, when I'm not paying attention and my dashboard's off, I'm prone to I'll wind up on YouTube. I'll wind up, on Twitter. I'll wind up, I'll just get sucked into the white noise. Yeah. And it's really easy to do. And I'll be like, oh, I got an hour. And then it's not long before the voice in my head says, we've got an hour to kill.
Yeah. Yeah.
Instead of I've got an hour. Hey, look, I've got an hour here. I could do something.
Yeah, and one of the things that's helped me in this is basically I have one thing every day that I look at and go, that's the win. Just one. Not 3, not 5, just one thing where I'm like, if I do that today, that's going to basically determine whether I won or lost today. And then everything else is whipped cream and cherry on top of the sundae. And that's usually, I just have a handful of things that I'm paying attention to in general. And then I just look at my day. And if I've got white space or I've carved something out on the calendar, I'm like, if I do that one thing, then I won. So for today, recording this podcast episode, that's the win for today. I have other things that I'm doing, but this is the priority. And when we get done with this, then I can just basically tell myself that I won the day, and then everything else is just open season.
You won the day before
lunch.
Yeah, come on, that's big. That's big. Yeah, and I think that's a great piece of wisdom. Is, man, you can look at a long list of stuff to do, and the ruler is just too long. I mean, it's just, how do you measure that? What's the win for the day?
And when people ask me about to-do lists, I'm like, well, do they work for you? Do you get the results that you want? And if you do, awesome. Nobody's going to force that thing out of your hands. But if a to-do list doesn't work for you, then it doesn't work. And so that's, I think, everything that we've said this. And when we did the episode, kind of looking at this entire piece of vocational health and ambition, and we've said this in different areas, the plan that works is the plan that works for you. And so if you love the 3-page long to-do list and you get the results that you want, awesome. If you're not, then there's nothing there's nothing that is holy and sacred about a to-do list. In fact, it might be the thing that's keeping you from doing your best work.
Yeah. And there are so many, and that's another way to get distracted, right? Of like, oh, I'm going to try this new system. I'm going to try this new tool. And for those of us who have ADHD, we're prone to that. Hey, what new shiny toy can I start to play with?
Right.
And I've been in positions where I've said, hey, everybody, I need a week of undisturbed time just to learn this new productivity system. And I said that with a straight face. That's just nuts. Like, I'm going to, hey. This is stupid. But that's me. That's some of my struggle in this world. But yeah, whatever system works for you, use that, whether it's GTD, whether it's Franklin Covey, whether it's a day timer, whether it's just a sheet of paper, or things, or to do. A lot of the apps out there are OmniFocus. A lot of the apps, they're fantastic. Just use whatever works for you.
Right.
But let's get down to the nitty gritty of this. I mean, because if we don't understand why we want to be productive, none of what we said to this point really matters.
Yeah.
So why is it important for us? Give us a why, Matt, as to why we need to be productive.
Well, let's go through these strategies and make sure we have these down. So the first one that we basically said is, number one, we have to prioritize our most significant work. Okay, so we talked about the Eisenhower Matrix, and we said, look, that non-urgent but important work that's going to make a huge difference, that's your priority. Okay, when you whatever job that you're doing, whatever work that you're doing, that's where your eye is going to be focused. Second is, if it really is that important, you need to prioritize it in your schedule, in your day, in your heart. I mean, it basically needs to be the thing you're like, yes, this is the most important, and yes, I need to tackle that pretty early on in my workday. The third strategy is pretty simple, and that is that you really do need to build a consistent work rhythm. And this is a real, I think, powerful idea. So the U.S. Army research did a study, and what they found is that if you will work for 90 minutes, like hard, focused work, and then you take a 15 to 20 minute break, and maybe you're working on a project, you get up from your desk and you go down the hall and you have a 15-minute conversation, or you have been in a 90-minute meeting, and then you're done with that meeting, and then you're going to walk out and you're going to walk around the building a couple of times. But when you get out of that rhythm of focus, so when you hear us go, hey, make the most out of your day, and we're talking 8 to 9 hours a day of just hardcore focus, no distractions. No, you've got to be able to work and rest. There's a rhythm to the way in which we were created for this, right? But it also shows up in your work. So like those three things: prioritizing significance, making sure that happens in your day, and then as you're doing the work, taking these breaks. I mean, you're going to find that I think that's going to be helpful. Now, why does all of that matter? Why does productivity matter? Well, nobody cares about productivity for the sake of productivity. I think we get sucked into that, right? But nobody just wants to be productive to go, hey guys, guess what? I am Captain Productive. Like, that's not what we're after here. I've seen a couple of people say this, and there's a kind of an online coach named Michael Hyatt. Some of you may have heard of him. And Michael has done a really good job of going, in the end, the reason why we care about productivity is that we want freedom. We're created for that. And so when he talks about this, he talks about several kinds of freedom. And I like this. And he talks about four of them. He says, one, if you're going to be productive, like the reason productivity matters because you want freedom to focus. Like that's where all the important work is done. And that's what we've spent a lot of time talking about here today. Like you want to prioritize certain things so that your important work can really get done. Second is we want to be productive because we want the freedom to be present. So instead of thinking about work or other things when we're with our family, and we talk about this and the whole entire idea of relational health and presence, like the reason why being productive at work matters, so you're not constantly taking things home because you're having to catch up on things that you didn't do because you weren't productive during your workday. That's the second one. Third is the freedom to be spontaneous. Okay, to be able to have room on your calendar for things that are interesting and fun that just kind of pop up out of the blue. If you could create a rhythm in your work which are productive, and now you're going to be freedom to do that. Now, the fourth one is one that I think is challenging for all of us, and that is the freedom to do nothing. But I'm going to noodle with this a little bit, because when he talks about the freedom to do nothing, he's basically talking about shrugging off the unrelenting busyness of life to just be. And so he talks about, this 3-week-long vacation he took to Italy, which is great. The reason I want to change that and to talk about the fact that I think that we were also created for the freedom to rest, that's what I want to really land on, is because I think that's the ultimate reason why productivity matters, is because you and I long for the freedom to rest. Some of that is to experience physical rest from the difficulty and challenges of work. But I also think that it gets all the way down deep into the idea of, in the end, we crave the freedom to rest in simply who we are, not what we do. And this is where, for our perspective, for Tal and I, coming from a Christian perspective, where we really believe this is the best news in all the world, that your value in the universe, the way that God sees you, is not based on your performance and productivity. He created you to be productive. He created you to perform, because we really do believe that when we are at our best in our work, that we absolutely bring glory to God through our work. But he didn't make you, and he doesn't love you because you are more productive, because you had a high-performing day. Those things matter, but they don't ultimately matter to God. And so to be able to play our hand, do a good day's work, and be done with it, when we can leave that with him, the results of our work, the work that we don't finish today, that's still going to be there tomorrow, when we can leave that with him, it is a way for demonstrate that we genuinely trust in God, that we rest in him, we embrace the limits of our humanity, and we really do believe that God loves us and he likes us. On our most productive days, but yeah, even on our least productive days too. So we love productivity because it brings glory to God. We think that it creates the best version of ourselves as workers, and God loves his people working. But ultimately, our productivity really does give us this just very deep sense of rest in who he is and what he's done for us.
And that just hits the whole concept of Sabbath and the importance of that.
Yeah.
Is to have you. Yes, you work, but then there's that day where, listen, no work is going to go down. And then, of course, the Pharisees had to create a whole law code that made it a whole lot of work to avoid work.
Right.
It's holy cow. I mean, all the rules are just mind-boggling, around Sabbath. But just to take that time and take a day and not work, and it's something that our culture here in America anyway. So again, for our listeners in Afghanistan and Sri Lanka, it may be different for you. But here, there is just this tyranny of productivity. There's a glamour to saying I'm busy. There's a significance attached to, oh man, I don't have time for that, I'm so busy. There's like, oh, that guy's really important. And as a leader, it's real easy to get sucked into that, and it's real easy. And I know a lot of companies who will scream and preach work-life balance. And they'll say that publicly, in large meetings with their employees, but then privately the pressure is still on. That top tier management unit still clocking 60, 70 hours a week.
Yeah.
So they're not living that message, and there's an expectation for them not to. There's an expectation that, no, you're still, that's good for them, but if you want to be up at the top tier, you need to knock down 70 hours a week. You got to be in here with us.
Yeah.
And that's hard. And so the concept of saying, you know what, no, I work hard and I'm productive so that I can get to Sabbath and I can rest, and I can enjoy the fact that God loves me, that God likes me, that God is for me, and I can enjoy the gifts that he has given me, and I can enjoy the blessings, and it's that line between being the human doing and the human being.
Right.
And we have to do both. We really do have to do both in our world, but to leave time to be a human being and just be, and enjoy that.
And that looks different for different people. I mean, in terms of, what the goal is for some of us, and we're all wired a little bit differently. And again, that's why we have just created, or at least embraced, this arena of health. And that's what we're really after. It's less about a prescription of exactly how many hours a week you should work, or what you should do with your free time, or all those kind of things. Like we're just trying to create a picture that gives you clarity as you're listening to this about what should I be aiming for. And that's where we're after a healthy productivity here that focuses on what matters most, and leaves room for us to, as Tal said, be a human being and not a human doing.
Yeah. And it's hard. And it does look different for everybody else. My wife and I were just going through a process at our church. And so interesting for me, because they were handing out the disc inventory. Like from a Pez dispenser.
Did you feel like you just sold out MBTI and your Myers-Briggs community?
I felt a little dirty. I did. I showered, but honestly, I think a whole lot more of the MBTI than I do the disc. I know a lot of you love the disc. I'm not opposed to the disc,
And we're not even going to touch the Enneagram today, are we?
Oh, holy cow. It's just very, very limited. But so my wife is sitting there and they're talking about it in group, and so the guy's kind of, explaining the disc profile and going through the different things. And so he, talks about the D personality, and my wife goes, "That's not me." And I'm trying not to laugh in her face. And then,
long drink of coffee.
Here's the I. She goes, "Yeah, I'm more like that." And then the S. "Oh yeah, I'm like that." And then the C. And she goes, "No, I'm not like that. I'm dying." And then she says out loud to the entire class, "I think I'm, I think I'm an SI." And I just spit out that long drink of coffee, and said, "No, you're not." And so she came home and took the instrument. She went through the assessment, and the short version, the free version they give out, she scored as a high D and a C. And I said, "Yeah, that's what I told you it was going to be." And she said, "I'm going to pay to take the fuller version because I don't think that's right." And so she went and took the full version. And of course it came back with, "Yes, you're a high D and a C." And so, but one of the most interesting pieces of that is as she read through what that meant for her, just kind of what's typically true of a high D personality, she ran across that it says she has the inability to relax. And and that really resonated with her because, listen, if my wife is awake, she's working on something.
Right.
And I have an enormous ability to sit on the couch and do nothing, which she interprets as incredible laziness. And it's very frustrating to her at times. And so, and I'm going, "Can you not sit down for 5 minutes? Like, just let's watch a movie." If she sits down and gets out of motion, my wife's going to sleep, Jack. That's just what's going to happen. So if there is not something happening that my wife is actively engaged in, she's asleep.
Yeah.
So it may be that you need to get to this Sabbath and find ways to relax.
Yeah.
Relaxing may be a struggle for you. It may be that you don't have hobbies. It may be that you don't just know how to sit and relax, or that's just really challenging for you. So it does look different for everybody else. So it doesn't necessarily look like sitting down and watching a movie for you. That may be just really annoying. But for some of us, it's fantastic work. So, and
I think one of the things that as we're getting into these conversations and deep diving on some of these topics, I mean, one of the things that I've begun to say a lot with people is, so if you take like these 3 strategies, and let's say that you look at those and go, "Those sound great." It doesn't mean that the work is over. And I don't want to overwhelm you with that. I just want to give you just permission to continue to kind of just deep dive on these things on your own. Like, you need to find how these things work for you. And that doesn't mean that, hey, you know what, this is just going to be completely solved in a day or a week or a month. Like, that's part of the journey that we want to help you with. Like, we're trying to give you clarity on some of these issues, to give you a foothold for you to take the next step and figure out what it looks like to explore issues like productivity in your own life.
Yeah, I have, and just in my work, a lot of people come in and they don't know how to relax, and they don't know how to find pleasure. Well, they don't know appropriate means to find pleasure. Let's say it like that.
Yes, again, you're working with a lot of sex addicts, so
yeah, and yeah, so. And alcoholics and drug addicts. And so what we do is I have a pleasure assessment. It's several pages long of just, do you find this activity pleasurable?
Yeah.
And so it's lists and pages of ideas of things to do that many people find pleasurable, that are healthy. And it's so unattractive. They will just go through the list. No. The answer to everything but their main way of coping is no.
Yeah.
because the brain is so wired for that dopamine hit, and that's the only way they really get it anymore. That to branch out and try new things is a challenge. But this can be helpful for anybody to take in terms of if you just struggle slowing down, if you just struggle resting, if you just struggle being. It's a great little piece, and these are things that we'll be doing with y'all when we do kind of live Q&As and things. These will be great times to bring these questions up, and we can talk more in depth about those things with you. And we look forward to doing that with you.
Yep.
And so, so to kind of summarize today, what we've talked about in terms of productivity is finding your most significant work that's significant, not urgent. And prioritizing that, and then making sure you get that on your calendar and prioritize it on your calendar, and then have that good, creative, productive rhythm, whatever that is for you. You know, the U.S. Army talking about 90 minutes at a time. There's also a technique called the Pomodoro technique that it's 15 or 20 minutes. Set a little timer, boom, 15, 20 minutes of focus. Get up, walk around, do something for 5, 10 minutes, then come back and go, okay, here we go again, and bear down during that time. And then we've talked about why, really why do we want to be productive? And it is to create freedom in several ways. And really, I love how Matt summed that up in terms of we really, as Christians, we're looking to be free to enjoy God and enjoy that God loves us and that God likes us and God is for us, and just to be able to rest in that and enjoy that we don't have to, nor can we be productive to make him happy, and he's not walking around the halls of heaven going, geez, I wish Matt would get off his tail and do something for me today. It's a very freeing thought. So enjoy that. Matt, how you want to wrap up?
Well, for me, I think that this is just one of those areas of life where I think we feel the pressure because there's so much going on to be productive. I do think that we can forget why it matters ultimately for us. And all those things matter. I mean, all this, the ability to focus on your work, the ability to make room to be present with other people. And as Tal just said, I think in order to rest. And when I was really thinking about what we could do to kind of help people kind of take the next step in this, is we've just kind of been having a conversation here and giving them some information. We created something over at fivefactors.net/freedom that basically it's a roadmap for you to be able to identify, as we've talked about the 5 factors, which of these do you need to work on right now? So what we're going to do in that just kind of overview of this, like we're going to just walk you through identifying in the next 3 months, which one of these 5 areas do I want to focus on in my work? We're going to help you set a goal related to that, and then we're going to give you just a really simple 3-step process that's going to help you move all the way from an idea into taking action. So we're going to help you set goals. We're going to help you get things on calendars, but it's going to allow you to get the clarity you need about where you are right now, and then we just want to help you get momentum so you can get the results in this area that you're looking at right now and go, you know what, in the next 3 months, if I saw a change in this part of my life, then I think it would make a difference for me. I think it would make a difference for the people around me. And so that's kind of the next step there. So I'd encourage you to go to fivefactors.net/freedom and go ahead and download that. Make time on your calendar, carve out 30 minutes to an hour, and work on that in the next couple of days, and really create kind of this vision for what you want to see happen in your life in the next 3 months, and then the plan to go from idea and vision to reality. And I'm really, really grateful that we have an opportunity to help you kind of put that together.
Going to be a great resource to help you if this is the factor, if this is the area on your dashboard that you realize is a little weak right now. It's a critical area. It'll be really helpful to go look at that tool. And also, if you're enjoying the podcast, if you're enjoying what we do here, share it with some of your friends that you know are out here and would benefit from it. Please share freely. We would appreciate that. And also, if you want, go and write a review and let people know that are looking around for podcasts. Go rate our podcast and review it, and we always are looking for your feedback. That is helpful for us. We don't ever intend this to be a monologue. We want this to be a community dialogue. So you have a lot of input here and control here, so we really invite that. So please contact us, review us, and give us your feedback so that we can get better, and so that we would be more productive for you. So that is, I think, a good place to end this today. And it has been great to have you with us. We hope this has been helpful for you. I know it's been helpful for me. So Matt, thank you very much for your wisdom and input today. And that will wrap up this episode, episode 8 of the 5 Factors podcast. And we will see you on episode 9.